We got the Audioholics 2024 Product of the Year Award winners. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. All right, my friends, we have a full house tonight. 2024 Product of the Year Award winners. We've got Theo Nicolakis, James Larson, and Digital Dunn. How are you guys doing tonight?
What's up?
Doing great, Gene.
Awesome. I'm liking that we all have the hat. James didn't get the memo.
I didn't. I'm sorry. I just didn't get the memo. You should have sent one.
So, guys, I'm glad that you're all here tonight. I know it's obscure to do it on a Saturday night, but we all had a lot of stuff going on. All right, so we have all of these great products we want to discuss. The editorial is on the website. You guys can look at the link in the description below, but it always helps when we could talk about these products because we all have firsthand experience with them. So everything that's in this article is based on stuff that we reviewed. Not all the reviews are fully published yet, but we've been working with these products for multiple months. Don's got the Arendal stuff. Teo's got the Focal stuff. I've got some Arendal stuff and Yamaha stuff. James has done every freaking speaker you can think of.
He got it all.
He's got it all. So we have a lot of stuff to get over here, and I want to share this article with you guys, and we'll go from product to product, and we'll each talk about our experiences. So the first one would be the Onkyo TX-RZ70. Don, you and I have a long history with Onkyo back in the day, right? Back in the day when
absolutely. My first nice receiver was an actual Onkyo TX-SD828 THX, and I loved it.
That was a great receiver.
It was, yeah, in the 90s, early 90s.
Yeah, so they were really some of the best in the 90s, and then you know they've had their ups and downs over the years. Now, of course, they're part of a conglomerate with Pioneer, and they're sharing engineering resources. I'm glad they went back to their linear AB design amplifiers because the first generation of ICE modules weren't great at driving low impedance loads, and I pointed that out with the SC07. But this Onkyo TX-RZ70 is a beast. It's a $2,800 receiver. It's on sale for $2,000 shipped, and you guys could click the link to our channel partner AudioVice if you decide to purchase it. But when I bench tested this thing, I actually had to bench test it twice because I thought my results were skewed. I got over 100 watts a channel with 7 channels driven. And this thing, it's like 50 pounds. It's got a really big power supply in it. You could look at my bench test results on this one. And Theo, your buddy actually did the full review on this, and you helped me set it up. Yeah, what did you think about it?
Mark loves this unit. So we talked about it quite a bit. We got together in New York for dinner, and I think the operative word is Onkyo is back with this one. So other than a snafu with Dirac, which we talked about in the forum, this thing was just an exceptional performer, and I really love what Onkyo has done in really expanding the ecosystem as far as its streaming support. So solid build quality, integrates into a smart home, built for streaming music, and just performs like a beast, like you measured.
It has basically Marantz SR8015 level performance in terms of amplifier power, you know, noise and distortion, and it's a lot less money than that old model. Hey, I wanted to give a shout out. Someone gave us a super thanks. Really appreciate this, Sander Schroeder. Thanks for all the content you've put out for this year. $50. Really appreciate that. Awesome.
That's super cool.
So yeah, this receiver is truly a beast. I can't stress to you guys enough what a value that is at $2,000. You're getting a one-box solution with real amplifier power. There's no nannies that are going to power limit this. Some of the older Onkyos that I measured, when they were on the test bench and they got overdriven, they would go into a low power mode, and the only way to fix that would be to actually unplug it and plug it back in. Power cycling it didn't fix it. This doesn't have that problem. In fact, when you go into a current protection mode, the unit will shut off. When you turn it back on, it'll check each amplifier before it puts everything back into full power mode. So I really appreciate the update they made to that receiver, because I've been complaining about that for a couple of generations, and they listened, and they put every resource you could possibly put into this receiver. I call this one of those redefining category products. Don talks about that a little bit with the Arendal. this redefines what a $2,000 or $2,800 receiver, what you could expect out of a receiver of that caliber. It's 11 channels of amplification and process and 2 subwoofer outputs. So if you want 4 subwoofer outputs independent, you're going to have to go to one of the Dunn and models like the 6800 or the Cinema 30 or something like that. Of course, that's going to cost you more money. But if you only need 2 subwoofers, or you want to throw a mini DSP on there or parallel a couple of subs, you could certainly do that with this unit. As long as you're limited, you're okay with limited to 11 channels of amplification. This is all you need. I wouldn't recommend any other AVR at $2,000.
Oh, Gene, weren't the preamp outputs very clean on those too?
Excellent. The preamp outputs were excellent on that. So if you do need more power, guys, I suggest you look at the bench test results. But yeah, you can add an amplifier with no problems. So the next category is a hi-fi 2-channel receiver. I'm a big fan of old school Yamaha. I don't know, Don, you've probably grown up with a lot of Yamaha back in the 80s and 90s as well. You remember their hi-fi products back then?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've owned several Yamaha pieces and used it on countless installations, you know, because it sounded good, but it was very reliable. That was always one of Yamaha's mantras, is people would have Yamahas. And you know this, Gene, we talked about products we still had, probably still working. I mean, they just lasted and lasted.
Oh yeah. Well, I really like the 2000. I reviewed the 1000 last year, which is it's like $1,800 version of this receiver. It has some of the same technologies with MusicCast. It actually has 10 more watts a channel at 8 ohms, the cheaper model. But this one, what separates this one from the 1000 is the fact that it's got a fully FET output, and there's 4 outputs per channel. And it has a very large toroidal transformer and 4 output capacitors. In fact, when I bench tested this, I thought the power supply was regulated, and you really don't want to regulate a linear AB amplifier and a linear power supply because you'll have too much losses because of drop-off voltage. I checked with Yamaha because I got the same power of 1 channel driven or 2 channels driven. They're like, no, this is not a regulated supply. There's so much capacitance. So there's no, sag on the power supply. This power supply was way over designed for the power output. In fact, I told them, I go, you guys could bump the rail voltage up a few volts easily to get more power. But what makes this such a tasty amplifier is the fact that it drives 4 ohms all day long. It drives 2 ohms. I never check receivers at 2 ohms, and this thing had no problems driving 2 ohms. There's no stupid impedance switch on it because there's so much heatsink area. And in fact, with the new FTC standard on measuring amplifiers, they want you to measure them for 5 minutes straight and then at all frequencies to make sure it hits that power rating. Not only did I do a regulated sweep at 100 watts a channel, even though it was rated at 90, it did it with both channels driven at under 1% distortion. And then I drove it before that. I preconditioned it at 1/3 power for an hour. The actual standard is 1/8 power. It used to be 1/3 in 1974. So I torture tested this receiver because 1/3 power on a linear amp is the hardest you could stress it because it's very inefficient and it's delivering a lot of power. And it got warm to the touch, never got hot. So when I saw that, and when I saw how this behaved, I thought to myself, I'm going to check this at 2 ohms. And when I checked it at 2 ohms, it gave me like close to 300 watts at 2 ohms. So this thing could drive a fork. And in fact, I gave it that fork. I gave it the Arendal 1528 bookshelf speakers. I want to show you guys a picture here. And Don, you have a lot of experience with Arendal. We're going to be talking about that. So I set this up with the 1528 bookshelf 8 speakers. And these are a difficult speaker to drive. These really separate the men from the boys in amplification because 2 reasons. Number one, they're 4 ohm speakers. I think they dip in the 3 ohm range. I got to look at the impedance graph again. But also the low sensitivity of like 84.5 dB. So when you get a speaker that has low sensitivity, it's tuned to 22 hertz. It'll suck amplifier power, but at the same time, it's giving you full range sound. These are bookshelf speakers, but they're not really bookshelf. They're massive. They're like
they throw down. They're unlike any bookshelf I've ever been around. I mean,
they're crazy. They got crazy amounts of bass, but they need lots of current. And what really surprised me was when I went from a Hypex module from the Evo 150 to Cambridge, which I love that amplifier. That amplifier drove my Revel F328s just fine in my guest room. But when I stuck the 1528 bookshelf 8s with the Evo 150, as you cranked it up, you could start hearing some strain. The vocals were more forward sounding. the amplifier protection went on. You can see a little red light going on the Even 150. Remember that, Don?
Yeah,
I think we were putting on
like to 100.
Yeah, what was that song you put on? That one, Ghost Rider.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I think that one was "We Are Humans," and
that one drove
pretty dynamic.
Yeah. So when I reran that test with the 2000, the Yamaha 2000, which is 90 watts at 8 ohms, I cranked the snot out of it. Never had a problem. Never sounded strained. In fact, it was a much more laid back presentation. The pairing with this receiver and the Arendal 1528 bookshelf speakers is just magic. Great bass, very tight, very clean, no matter how loud you drove it. And that's why I really like this receiver, because it's built incredibly well. It's like an art piece. Like, I love the VU meters. It reminds me of the 80s. You know, it's a throwback to that. It's got the MusicCast app built in, so you could do Tidal Connect. It's got YPOW, but
so
I love Yamaha. But YPOW could use some updating.
Yeah, that's a very nicely put.
Gene, what is it? The Yamaha products from the 80s were just amazing with their tactile, the touch, the knobs just had such an incredible feel. So when you talk, this thing has just gorgeous artistry. What's the feel like of using it?
That's a great point, Theo, because like on the 1000, when you turn the volume up and down, you can hear it rubbing. And I was like, oh, I don't like that. This one is so soft and so smooth. There's bearings in the volume control. Well, and that it's like crafted furniture or crafted jewelry, right? It makes a difference when you can feel the volume controls are all metal, the faceplate's all metal, the case is just beautiful.
It's a throwback. Remember, I took that 3200, which is double the price of this home.
Yeah,
and I literally teared up when I had to send it back to Yamaha. That thing was 100 watts a channel again. But remember when we took those apart, looking at how they were built, and just talking about some of the other high-end products out there that can't match that for you know, that same or more money.
$4,000 is not a lot when you really think about what's in this thing, the craftsmanship of how it's built, the fact that it could drive any speaker pretty much. I mean, I would put any speaker on this thing in a reasonable sized room and you're fine. And it's got preamp outputs in case you want to add external amplification, and it's got a subwoofer output with bass management through MusicCast. So it's a really flexible product, and it's got, I think it has AirPlay 2 support too. So you got everything covered with your streaming, and I love it. I'm going to be doing a full listening comparison video between this and the 1000, and that should publish right after the new year. So definitely check out the bench test results. And now next up is the Arendal 1528 Tower 8s. $9,500 a pair. People were criticizing that's too expensive. Don, what do you think about, you've been in this business for 20, 30 years, probably closer to 30. You've seen it all. You've seen all the high-end stuff. What do you think? Do you think the price of these towers is fair?
I mean, I have other speakers in my systems that cost more and can't do what these speakers do. I mean, they're a phenomenal, very articulate, very just very clean sounding at lower volumes, even for a 2-channel setup. So I think that anybody that's setting up a really nice 2-channel system should give those a try. Of course, if you have the room. Now these things need room to breathe. But on the flip side of that, besides this delicate sound and articulate sound, these things came to party. I mean, they are nuts on the dynamics that they have at all volume levels. I mean, I couldn't really drive them in a compression, and my ears were giving out. And before I was able to really, I think, push them past their max. I mean, they very much remind me of like a Perlison or you know, some of the higher output type speakers out there. So I think for a dedicated 2-channel system, if you have the room, or if you're doing a full tilt theater even, that you should consider these. You know, use the LCRs behind a screen wall. They have the slims for the on wall, the bookshelves. This is just bring somebody to help you carry them, because they're all pretty darn heavy.
Yeah, these are like 170 pounds each. Again, these are tuned really low, down to 22 hertz or so. That mid-range is really phenomenal. It's a sealed basket mid-range, so it has more efficiency, more sensitivity. That tweeter, usually, Don, we always find like 1-inch tweeters tend to be the limiting factor in a tower, but these with the waveguide and the fact they have a huge motor structure, they have a lot of dynamic range, and they're not high sensitivity speakers. If I'm not mistaken,
89.3 or 5. Yeah.
So there's other speakers in its price class, like the Perlistons, for example, that have higher sensitivity, that'll play louder with less power.
That are smaller.
But these are tuned lower, so they give you more of that full range sound if that's what you're looking for, and they just look badass.
Yeah, they're definitely like Viking ships coming at you. I would say that, you know, no speaker's perfect, and there's no one best speaker. However, at $9,500 a pair delivered to your door, including tax, they are a disruptive value, because I can tell you for a fact that they handily compete with speakers double their price range and even higher. And from an output or dynamic capability standpoint, there's not a whole lot that I've heard that can match it. Meaning, as you turn them up, they tonally sound the same. You just don't experience that dynamic compression like you do with some speakers with 1-inch tweeters and whatnot. So it's a really cool design. I have to, and hopefully in my formal review will reflect that, some of the experiences I have with it.
Well, we did some good coverage of these so far. We've got Jay Iagi's measurements. I did a live stream with Jay. I did a video with Michael, Youthman, and Don. We did it at his house. Don just finished his formal 1528 Tower 8 review. I'm still going through peer review on it. That'll publish, you know, probably in the next week or so. James Larson's working on the 1528 monitor. He had some issues with his pre-production units. He had to change out some parts and through Arendal, so that'll be coming. I've got the Bookshelf 8 that I'm going to be doing a formal review of as well, and I've been using that speaker a lot in the last month or two just to test amplifiers, because this is the most taxing speaker that I've had in one of my systems in a while, and I actually really enjoy it, because if you give it good amplification, you will be rewarded with full range sound.
It's fun. So one thing just real quick on that, and this holds true to most any speaker, but I think more so in this speaker, Arendal gives you quite a bit of flexibility of changing, you know, up or down dBs on your tweeters and ranges and whatnot. These speakers do require special care. Placement I found to be very important on them. They have great wide dispersion, but just like anything, where you position in the room, the toe, the angle, you know, if you're too close to it, I angled mine forward a little bit, but really the amplification, you probably shouldn't. Not the towers anyways. I don't know if it's true for the monitors and the bookshelves, but, you know, even a flagship receiver might have a tough time really putting these speakers, you know, driving them. They're not a speaker you just buy, place on the ground and just live your life. They're a speaker that you should take the time, and like any fine instrument, you should do that. So.
Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend powering any of the 1528 series with a AV receiver. If you have an AV receiver, I would get a external amplification. I mean, amplification's on the cheap these days. You can get a good 200-300 watt amplifier for under $1,000, and it'll make these speakers come alive. James, I'm going to put you on the spot because you just started doing the listening tests on the 1528 monitor. Can you give us some quick impressions of what you think so far?
Really good. Just really good. Neutral sound, very nice imaging. Deep bass. I can't complain about anything about these speakers. Except for maybe they're really heavy. It's really heavy speakers.
They are really
heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is I'm not a fan 100% of the stands, because they're on the Bookshelf 8, the tweeter level's too low. The stand should be taller, but I'm sure on the Monitor 8, it's probably the right height. I wish they would have a different stand or an adjustable stand to accommodate both of those speakers. But as far as I know, those stands aren't finalized, and they might be working on something else with that. But that's something we'd have to check with Arendal on.
You can always, those stands come separately, so you could just like get ones that are the right height for you. But the trick is finding a stand that can support the weight of them. Like the monitors weigh 100 pounds each, right? And yours weigh 60 pounds, right? So you need a serious stand to be able to hold that kind of weight.
You do. And the funny thing about it is their stands take up a bigger footprint than the towers. So I've got the Bookshelf 8 with their stand. It's a bigger footprint than the tower itself, just because it's so wide. And
somebody they could buy a pair of the 1723, their flagship subwoofers, and put the maybe put like some acoustic pucks, like isoacoustics or something, to decouple them and put them on top of there. That might be a pretty cool little combo to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the 1723 subs, especially the dual driver ones, whether it be the dual opposed momentum of each driver would cancels out all the cabinet vibrations, or at least the cabinet rocking, so that wouldn't shake the speaker off. It would be actually a pretty good speaker stand to use the dual driver subs from Arendal too.
Yeah, that makes sense. So moving on, the SVS Ultra Evolution, their name is so long. Ultra Evolution Pinnacle Floor Standing Tower. Don, you and I heard these at Florida Audio Expo. Was it last year?
Yep.
That was,
and audio advice as well. So
audio advice as well. I was impressed what I heard at the show because they were running them with no subs, and these speakers had serious bass. They have 4 8-inch drivers, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. The MTM up front for the mid tweeter. James, you did the really detailed review of these with measurements. I'm going to let you give us your impressions on this. We did a review. If you guys want to look, link in the below, you can read it. Also look at our YouTube discussion, but give us the skinny on why you decided to make these like the mid-price floor standing product of the year.
They're just really good, very, very capable speakers. They look killer, right? They sound great. I'd say they're on the warm side of voicing, so they're not like they're not really hot. You don't have like what you'd call traditional clip sound, right? But the tweeters are all hot, right? So like they're pretty mellow, but they can rock really hard. I would say the bass is a little bit elevated. That doesn't bother me very much. It's like a wide. Well, I mean, we talked about it in our live stream, and also it's in the editorial review. So slightly elevated bass, and very well controlled, like a flat linear tweeter gives it a kind of a warm presentation. I really like it. You could listen to these for hours, and not get fatigued. And of course, you can they have an output for days because they have 2 mid-range, 2 5 1/4 mid-ranges at 4 8-inch bass drivers, right? And these are not like wimpy drivers, right? These are all really good drivers. So like the huge cabinet is just like lots of dynamic range and easy to listen to. So like that's the skinny, I would say.
It's funny because it's like it seems like curved is the new trend for 2024 with these
the new straight.
Yeah,
they're heavy too, though. Those SVSs are not any slouches on size themselves.
Oh, they're big. Yeah, they're big. They're not nearly as heavy as the Arendals, but like they're a handful.
Yeah, they're almost 100 pounds each. They're 50 inches tall. Yeah. They have a sensitivity of 88 dB, so they're not super sensitive. This is the other trend we're seeing with some of these high performance speakers now, is they're giving you more bass, but they're trading sensitivity. So you need better amplification. So this is another example of where I would say get a 200 watt plus per channel amplifier if you're going to use these towers, if you want to get their full potential, not so much just an AV receiver.
Gene and James, this is probably, and Don as well. I think it's important that maybe if anybody has had previous experience with SVS speakers, this is a whole different animal. This doesn't sound like any of their previous iterations, right?
No, it's a statement.
I've heard a lot of the previous speakers, but only at trade shows. The only thing I've ever reviewed was their Prime Pinnacle towers, which were fine. They were fine speakers. It's very different from these. I never really got to spend a lot of time with their Ultras, the previous series from these. They do have a few things in common, but there are some really like radical changes in design from the Ultras. So I can't really speak to how much though, because I didn't really spend a lot of time with the Ultras.
Personally, I think it's the best sounding speaker SVS has made. It's not a perfect speaker, obviously. Like you said, it's a little laid back, but you can EQ it to your taste. But the fact that they give you the tools for it, they give you the bandwidth, they give you the drivers that have the dynamic range, they give you good build quality, they give you the 60-day free trial period, just like Arendal. So I mean, these are all great products that we're showing you guys here. And James, you even said this in the article, we've done a ton of really good reviews of quality products. So check out what all the stuff we've done in 2024 as well. But these are just some really standout ones in their category, and that's why we wanted to feature them.
Some big speakers coming out now. Big throw down, put the gloves on type speakers.
Yep. So next up is a budget tower. This is from RBH Sound, and they've shifted all of their manufacturing to the USA. So anyone that always says, I don't want to buy something made in China, well, here's your chance. This is all made in Utah. The cabinetry is made in Utah. This is a budget tower. It's got I think it's a 5 1/4 inch phase plug mid-range, and then the 1 inch tweeter, silk tweeter, and then it has side firing 8 inch driver, and it has outriggers on it. And the fact that it's all made in the United States and it's $1,100 a pair is a really high value. Again, James did the formal review of these, so I'll let you talk a little bit about why you selected these for the budget tower.
I was very impressed. I mean, they sounded just great, very full sound. They had a little bit of punch too. They were like they had a fair amount, a pretty good amount of dynamics for the size of the speaker. These are small, slim towers, right? And they could still get pretty loud and have really good bass extension. I can't remember what was I think I got below 30 hertz in room.
Oh yeah, there's definitely 30 hertz usable bass and below. Yeah.
Yeah, and like they were really decent speakers, and the fact that they're made in the United States, like a home audio, a low cost, affordable home audio speaker made in the United States, it's like it's crazy, right? And in the year 2024, it's crazy. I mean, you can find plenty of speakers made in the United States, but they're very expensive because labor is much more expensive here, and our manufacturing practices are much more expensive here. But our RVH has found a way to make a decent competitive tower speaker in the United States, in that price class. That's just crazy to me. It's just a really good speaker.
I think the build quality on those is absolutely exceptional for their price range. I mean, they're built with HDF.
Yeah.
They're you just don't think cheap speaker, no such thing anymore, but lower price speaker. When you see these, they really do have a substantial build quality, something you could keep for many, many years. It's a great product.
And they have,
they have a whole series. They have a bookshelf. They have, subwoofers to go with it. And if you guys are interested in these products, our channel partner is Dream Media, and I put the buy link in there as well. So definitely check that out. James, you were going to say something else before we went on to something else.
Yeah, it's like also the paint. This has a real a kind of satin finish paint, right? That like most low cost speakers in this segment use like a vinyl wrap, right?
Yeah,
these are actually painted, and the paint is pretty good too. I mean, it's not their finest paint, right, which they reserve for their higher echelons, right? But it's it's pretty incredible what they're doing for the cost, right? Yeah, so that's what I wanted to mention.
So James, someone's asking, can these RBHs crank? Did you turn them up pretty good? They have pretty good output
for their size, because they're using pretty good drivers for their size. They can, but there's only so much. They're a small tower, so don't expect them to compete with, say, the Arendals or the SVS speakers, right? But if you need a small tower with good bass extension that actually has pretty good dynamic range, yeah, they're really good for that form factor, I would say.
Like a small to medium sized room, not like a really large room.
Yeah, I wouldn't try to power a large room at loud volumes with these, but small.
And I think you can buy these configured a little different with their AMT tweeter, as well, for an upcharge, which is probably going to give you a little more crankability, man. It's my turn.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. James, you've been bugging me to listen to these, and admittedly I have not yet, but I will. I will. Okay, talk about these Dayton Audio Opals. I can't believe Dayton Audio has a speaker of this caliber.
Yeah. Okay. The Dayton Audio. I mean, they're more known for their finished products. They're more known for really affordable speakers, like $50 a pop speakers. Like they had those B. What is it? The B65 like bookshelf speakers. I can't remember the
exact
like
title. $200-$300 speakers.
No. The Bs, like the 65s, were like $50, not $200, like $50 a pair, right? And they were kind of classics in that like genre, you could say, of like really cheap speakers, right? And that's what kind of always what they did. They always have very affordable stuff. Then I think you're referring to the what is it, the those little slim towers and the little slim.
Oh yeah, the transmission line ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and those were only a couple. Those, I think they still have those, and they're only a couple $100s, and they're actually really good. So now Dayton sends us these speakers. I hope they didn't tell me the price deliberately. It turns out they sent me these speakers. I had to inquire about the price after I received them. It's like, these are beautiful. How is like really well built, right? Really nice speakers, and like so Dayton is going up market with these. These are only $800 a pair, which if you look at the build quality is a really good deal. But
well, look what's going on that speaker. The back of it has 2 passive radiators with a really high excursion cone.
Very high excursion. Yeah, it's a killer speaker. Darn it, Gene! I wish you'd listen to them. So here, I want to tell our audience what's going on. I keep telling you, I was so impressed with these speakers. I told Dayton Audio to send a pair to Gene. I said, Gene, you got to hear these. And he keeps making. He keeps on. I got stuff to you. I don't want to. He was like, come on, Gene, just give me. He has them, but he won't listen to them. Gene,
they're there. I will. I promise you.
Yeah, they're cool. You like them, right? They're really cool speakers. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, and they're these little bookshelf speakers actually dig down to 30 hertz. Well, right? It's crazy. They're very insensitive. You need an amp to drive them, but
yeah.
Are they crankable?
Well, their sensitivity is 78.5 dB. So no, they're not crankable in a big space. They got a lot of bass, but you need a good amount of power, and I think they have limitations on how loud they'll play, right, James?
Well, of course, yeah. Well, I think James is frozen in time.
Oh yeah, my internet dropped out. Sorry. I mean, I got too excited. I telling Gene to like listen to them already. Sorry. Yeah. Then the internet drop out. But yeah,
so somebody's asking, what about the Onkyo RZ70 with the Ultra Evolution Pinnacle? You could certainly power them, and in fact, if you're not using all the channels, you could consider bi-amping them and get good results. I would not use the Arendals with that receiver, though. I'd still get an external amplifier, but the Onkyo RZ70 is a great bass, and you could always add a 2-channel amp. I really think if you're getting a speaker like the Pinnacle or the Arendal, just get an amplifier. Spend $1,000, get a really good 2-channel amp, especially if you listen to a lot of music and you're playing them full range and not bass managing them. Get the most out of these speakers. You'll be pleasantly surprised if you have that. So let's move on now. James, I will listen to those, and we will do a separate video on the Opals. You did an awesome written review. You guys can take a look at it. It's in the article. And James was very happy about the speaker, even though he's a pragmatic kind of reviewer. He gushed over it for at least how James Larson gushes. It's all right. It's good. Yeah. But moving on now, this is a speaker that probably nobody has heard of on this stream. The AudioSmile. It's a little British monitor. It's an active speaker. It's a desktop speaker, tiny little thing with some good bass extensions, some incredible engineering. James measured these speakers. And in fact, if you look at the measurements, and I'll have James talk a little bit about his listening. Let me get down to the measurements section. Look at the drivers on this thing. Fully active design. The measurements, James, were so good that you could actually use these as monitors.
Yeah, they're very, very neutral.
Yeah,
so if you want a speaker that just outputs what you input, as in like reproducing the signal accurately, these will do that.
Look at that. That is beautiful.
They're really consumer audio speakers. They don't got like balanced inputs, right? So they don't have like a pro audio type, they're not geared for that. But the accuracy is on the level. They're as good as anything, really. Or like just really good. So like you could use them for that, but they're meant for consumer audio applications, and they're really good. They have Bluetooth connectivity. They have bass management, right? They have a 100 hertz high pass filter for the and also a subwoofer output. So they're just really good. I know, Gene, the review was very long for you, right? Going into quite a bit of technical detail, but
very long review.
If you want to go the skinny, right, it's really, 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 really cool speaker. Really cool little compact desktop speaker. I think it's probably the best one out there. Like it, right? I mean, there's other compact desktop speakers, they're less expensive. These are a little bit pricey. I think like just under 700 shipped, you know, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But they're the best. I think they're probably the best consumer compact desktop speaker there is. But they just
and they
great.
give you some real amplification with them. They give you 50 watts for the woofer, 50 watts for the tweeter, linear AB design. So they give you a lot of power because, you know, they are a small speaker.
And they're handmade in England. So they're like,
yeah,
you know, there's a lot of, they're really well built. The build quality is really good. So like, they are the best in their class, I believe. And like,
do they come with the stands?
Right now, if you buy them right now, there's a deal going on that they will ship the stands with. They can give you the stands for free, but normally you buy them separately, and there's something like, I don't know, $50 or so. They're not super expensive, but yeah, but
cool.
They look cool.
You're very cool speakers.
Well, next up we got Hsu Research, the VTF-TN1. This is basically a updated version of the 15H, only it's taller and takes up less of a footprint, right, James?
Well, a little bit more than that. I mean, it uses very similar amplifier, very similar driver. What's really changed is the enclosure and the port design, right? But that, I mean, you can do a lot with, you know, by changing the port dimension. I mean,
it terminates the competition.
And the cabinet, right? You can get that's a major change on a subwoofer. And so, like, yeah, it has a lower footprint, has a deeper tuning frequency, larger ports, right? Less chuffing, and like, I mean, not that the others ever had problems with chuffing. She was classically always been very good at having low, you know, very well behaved ports, and this is like even better, right? So like, it's just a really, really good subwoofer, and it's like a very high output subwoofer that doesn't take up a lot of space and it doesn't weigh a ton, right? So like, it's really easy to work with, and they're very, very linear, right? And
that's incredible. It's all analog. There's no DSP in this, right, James?
Yeah, you don't need DSP to make a great sub. You really, really don't. And this shows it. And it's just really good. You know, like there's nothing to complain about here. Like very high output, very powerful mid bass, very powerful deep bass.
It hits our extreme bassaholic rating, and it's only $1,200.
Yeah, well, that's a great value.
1,300 after shipping. The shipping's not in the price.
Yeah,
but yeah, like excellent group delay. So very good time domain performance. There's just nothing to complain of. I guess some people like might not, you know, the dimensions are a little unconventional, and some people might like a more normal shaped subwoofer rather than one that kind of stands up. But if you can get past that, it's a really, really
personally, Don, you could attest to this as an installer. I prefer to have a taller sub than a deeper sub. It's easier to put in a room. Don't you agree?
It absolutely is.
Mm-hmm. It eats up a lot of floor space.
My only complaint about the sub aesthetically is the grill is. I wish the grill was flush mounted, but you probably can't do that with such a big surround, I would imagine.
I think it looks cool. It looks like a serious piece of equipment.
I wouldn't use the grill. It looks better without the grill. Who's putting that grill on a subwoofer? Come on.
It's like, right, it James cool. Likes to show off that bass.
Yeah, it's like, that looks cool without the grill. And the grill, what is the grill? The grill is only really there to protect it from like kids or pets or something happening to it, but like, I don't think it looks better with the grill, right? Some people just don't like the size of the looks of drivers, but I don't know. That looks cool. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Well, moving on now, we have a budget subwoofer. We've done a ton of coverage for RSL. I love the brand because they're a small kind of family-run company. The 10S Mark II was a benchmark sub for under $500. James did the review of the regular one and then the Mark II, and it just got even better. Well, now they have a 10E, which is a more budget-friendly version. I don't know how much more budget they can go. The fact that you're getting this level of performance on a subwoofer for $300 shipped, this is really remarkable because anybody that's on the fence about doing multi-sub but can't afford multiple subs, there's never a better time or a better product, in my opinion, at this price class to get into multi-sub. What do you think about that, James?
I think it's just it's a really good sub. It's really, really well rounded. You know, I've done some reviews recently, pardon me, of like lower cost subs, and this, there's no shortcoming when you consider the price. It does nothing wrong. Like look at that driver, but like
a real driver.
Motor.
You buy like 4, 6, or 8 of those, and for not a ton of dough, and have some real multi-bass going on.
Yeah, like it's just really good. It doesn't dig quite as deep as the others, but like, you know, for $300, It's like
Yeah.
you're gonna get at least 30 hertz extension in a room.
Gets our medium bassaholic rating for $300. $300 you would expect a small rating.
And it's got pretty sophisticated limiters in it, you know, strange for the price. So like, you know, you could go crazy with this thing and not overload it because it's very well protected by DSP and stuff like that. So it's just a really good entry level sub, one of the very best out there. And it's really and like compared to the other subs of its price that we've dealt with, this thing is by far the best build quality. It's built because it has that what do you call it? The compression guide system in it. It really helps to reinforce the sides. So this is a very solid, probably the most solid sub in this class that you can buy, and the performance is really good. It looks nice too. You know, I love the look of the RSL drivers, right? Very cool dust cap. So yeah, it's just a well-rounded sub for the price. Really good.
Awesome. Well, next up, Theo,
we
got the Focal, the end-all, be-all, in-wall speaker. In fact, we have a video that we're going to show.
Here we go. You got sound?
Here we go. No sound, so you get some color commentary. So we're talking about there we go. So there it is in my theater. So I've got the Stewart, the Studio Tech 130 G4, and behind there we have the Focal IWLCR Utopias. These are really fantastic, and those are the sub modules, and I'll tell you about that in a second. First of all, these are actual Utopias. When Focal designates a speaker as Utopia, it's really the pinnacle expression of what the company offers. And when you think about these speakers right here, they have an MDF and an all in aluminum enclosure. They're closed back, and these really do behave like a traditional loudspeaker. And when I was looking for in-wall speakers, I was trying to say, you know what, I've had freestanding speakers in my theater here, but now that I wanted to finish off the room, I wanted something that could really perform like a reference to channel. And the kicker for me was last year, you may recall that I had the Scala Utopia in for review. And it was just such a phenomenal experience that I started to take a far more serious look at the IWLCR Utopias. And long story short, did the installation of these. So what's interesting about the way that these all are designed is as a Utopia, they do have a beryllium driver. One note is the Utopia version of the 1000, because there are others in the 1000 series, also have a beryllium driver, but this beryllium driver is different. It has more dampening and other materials. So I did ask Focal. It looks like the same tweeter that's in the others, but there is a differentiator there. And it has all the premium driver materials. You have the W cone that is common and exclusive to the Utopia line, et cetera, et cetera. And what's neat about this design as well is you have the beryllium tweeter in a Diapolito configuration, and that mid-range assembly pivots. So you can do a couple of things with that. If you're having these with a framed screen, you can actually pivot the tweeter assembly. So that way you can minimize reflections if you have these near a wall. Again, you can do that. Or if you actually want to tow the tweeter and mid-range assembly towards the listening position, you can do that as well in a similar way that you could do that with a freestanding speaker. The things that really I didn't understand until I started getting deep into the installation was the subwoofer modules. Initially, I thought that the subwoofer modules had to be configured as subs, whereas lo and behold, what's unique about the Utopias is they have a speak-on cable and a speak-on connector, and that's what you saw at the beginning of the video. And you can daisy chain these subwoofer modules to extend the bass range and the bass performance of the IWLCR Utopias. And that's how Focal recommended that I do the installation in my theater. So I have 6 subwoofer modules along the bottom, and now what you see is those subwoofers are actually extending the main speakers. If I
Did
don't
you get
run
an extension down to like 24 hertz in your room?
with minus 6 dB or so, it's down to 22 hertz.
Wow.
So I'm getting about 6 dB reinforcement because I have those drivers within 5 inches of the floor. Now, I don't recommend sending a lot of low frequency info. But if you want to play 2-channel, it will do it. The other thing that I think really is a statement about these speakers, they're designed to handle LFE. So you can send LFE to the mains, and that's how Focal wants you to configure these. And these will handle up to 750 watts of power driving these. So what's neat is I have a low ceiling, so I was able to then, because of the speak-on cable, I was able to assemble those subwoofer modules right along the bottom. But you can install them any way that you want, depending on how your room is configured, top to bottom, left and right in an array. And what's neat about the way that they have the magnetic grills is they're modular, so you can actually stack the grills and spray paint them. So
let's back up for a second, Theo. The one advantage you have with this system is you don't have a problem called speaker boundary interference, because all your bass sources are up against that wall. Correct. Like in my room, I have my giant SVTRSs 4 feet off the wall, and I got to dip at 80 hertz, and I had to add a bunch of subwoofers to fix it, right?
Yep.
In this case, because you've got these bass sources up against the wall, no SBIR issue.
Nope.
You've got a lot of full range bass going to your main speakers. Now you need a processor that could actually send LFE to those speakers in addition to your other subs. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. There's only a handful of processors that'll do that. One being the Marantz AV10, the other being a Trinov, which is super expensive. The other being a Storm audio processor, or the Focal equivalent to the Storm, the Astral, I believe.
The
it's
Astral
called.
16. And that's what I have. So
yeah.
I've got the Focal Astral 16.
You're the first person I know that has a successful calibration of art.
Not only do I have a successful calibration of art, it's a darn great calibration with art. So I'm glad you mentioned that. For those of you who may be interested, this is just intended as an FYI. The Focal is a Storm built processor, and they just launched an unlock of the Focal to make it a full-blown Storm. So I just did that. I think it was either tail end of October or November, just when the announcement came out. So I've been running art, and that's another reason why these speakers really shine, is I'm able to use the speakers as a support group down to about 40, 45 hertz or so. And that includes about 15 dB of headroom, because I'm EQing them, and I have a shelf filter that is a high pass filter down at 30 hertz to protect the drivers. And then I have the RBH infrasonic sub and the 1212 SW RBH on-wall subs, and I'm getting bass down below 8 hertz in the room. So it's really unbelievable.
You know, that 1000 series of speakers, I've been a part of several theater designs that use those, along with the 1000 series for the surrounds. And I've also heard a few systems set up with this same particular product, and they really do offer a tremendous alternative when you limited on space, or you need something very discreet. You can't build a deep baffle wall. You don't want to see on-wall speakers, which a lot of people don't on theaters. They give you true high fidelity performance, and Theo talked about that at length at first. I mean, they're an excellent product. They're not cheap, but you know, they're really, really good. And on music as well, believe it or not.
Yeah. This speaker will absolutely go toe to toe and best many reference speakers. It's really impressed me tremendously. I'll come down into the theater space and I will listen to 2-channel music extensively on this, and how this has been EQ'd again with Dirac Art. You saw, hopefully some of you have seen the tutorial that I did with Dirac, with Anthem, Arc, and with Odyssey. Well, I'm working on a tutorial with Dirac Art, and I sat with Matt Trinklin from Storm Audio, and actually Nilo, who was the product manager at Dirac, and I've done some really extensive testing here, and I'm very, very impressed. And I had my cousin Chris and his friend Rich down the theater. We were doing Top Gun and Dune, and we had 107 dB peaks playing with these things. So great dynamics, great imaging, great sound stage, just everything you want from an audiophile speaker. You've got it with the Utopia 1000. So 1000.
107. I do that at breakfast now.
The key is its quality. 107. It's not high distortion,
totally.
compression.
They crank.
Yeah. No, they're beautiful, Theo. I'm looking forward to your Dirac art video and having them work out some of the bugs in my system because what that high pass is really neutering my speakers, and I just turned it off as a result. You did a lot of workaround on it, which is awesome.
Yeah, we've got lots to talk about that, and I have talked to the folks. There is a fix for infrasonic that's coming with art. I've become a little bit of an art expert at this point. I didn't expect it to be, but it's been a lot of fun working on that. But back to the Focals, well deserved, and anyone who's been on the fence about, you know what, in-wall speakers just don't deliver reference performance. No, absolutely not. These are the real deal, and it's so nice to see architectural speakers really coming into their own. I think we're going to be talking more about architectural speakers in the years ahead. Did
they come with back boxes, or did you make your own?
No, these are fully back box, so they are tuned in the enclosure. I had so much output out of the bass modules, however, I had to rip down the front wall and redo it. These are serious. I mean, we're talking about 5/8 sheetrock Type X 2x6 studs. Don and Matt Pose and I talked extensively about redesigning the front wall.
That wall's never coming down. I'm telling you. Like if there's a tornado, you go by that wall, you be all right.
It's hemp hardened.
37 years of drywall, 2x20s. I mean, it's concrete.
Yeah, my only beef with them is I wish the dog ears would extend out to 2 inches. So that's actually my one real beef about the design of the speakers. You have to kind of be meticulous to reinforce your front wall, what you're going to do for how you're going to do the sandwich.
Awesome. Well, guys, that's a wrap on the Product of the Year Award article and the stuff that we've presented to you here. We got a lot coming in 2025. So we've got, James has like a boatload of articles that I have to peer review on products he's reviewed. So it's going to be a busy year. Teo's back in. Don is becoming a reviewer for us now too. He's going to be doing lots of content. We've got Jay Iagi's, we got Xavier, Captain Analog. So we've got a lot of stuff coming in 2025. And hopefully I can get to those Daytons, James, before 2025. So we can do that video.
Can we label 2024 the direct-to-consumer strikes back? Because look at all the products almost dominated.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, look, that template, in years past wasn't real effective because people couldn't, they needed to be guided and whatnot. But I think with all the people doing measurements and some of the great reviewers out there now, this type of product is becoming better and better. And you see these big flagship from SVS and Arendal and the Hsu and just it goes on. I mean, it's pretty cool.
It's a great time to be an audiophile. Let's just put it that way. It's pretty hard to get a really bad product these days from these mainstream brands that really care about audio. And it's not all just about the measurements. I mean, the measurements are useful. It's a good guide, but at the end of the day, it's how it integrates in your room, how it sounds, how it looks, how it feels, the longevity of the products. You don't want something that is designed just for its warranty period and then it dies. So we try to bring you the balance of that. We try to take all that into consideration. That's why we select the products that we do to review.
Gene, speaking of products, my experience with Dirac Art at this point, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I think I would very seriously start to recommend that folks look at full range towers for all of their surrounds going forward. The effectiveness of Dirac Art under 150 hertz is extremely impressive with a capable speaker that can play down. And
the only thing I'd say about that is putting towers for sides or back channels gives you other challenges for floor space, and also it tends to put the speaker too close to the listener, and most people don't have rooms that are wide enough. So maybe an in-wall with some bass support.
RBH has actually addressed that with their on-wall subs that match the depth of their on-wall speakers, and you can wire them separately. And like Shane Lee's doing in his theater, you could do waveforming on the high end, or if you just wanted to have that real full range, definitely that's an option. I'd like to see more manufacturers. I know Per Listen's come out with just an amazing on-wall subwoofer. So I mean that may be a cool trend coming up.
It definitely is, with, like you said, Don, with waveform, and we're going to see a lot more on-wall kind of subwoofer products, which will also work with direct art. And it's great to have them up against the wall. It saves space and it supports the channel that it's next to. And like Theo said, it gives you that low frequency support to even out the bass for all your seats. Because at the end of the day, you want all the seats to sound good in the theater room, not just one or two. Of course, you might still have a mother-in-law seat, but that's
unless you're stingy and you just care about your spot.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate all of the input you've given. James, Theo, Don, you guys have all been so supportive of providing us awesome content and feedback here. And guys, we appreciate you watching our content and giving us comments and supporting the channel. It's been a great 2024. I hope everybody has a great Christmas, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.
Keep listening. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.